My applesauce pie recipe is an easy and delicious old-fashioned custard pie that's the perfect way to make apple pie if you don't want to peel and slice apples. I am using my own homemade applesauce. I actually made it in the microwave. I did not peel the apples. It was super quick and easy, but if you want to use store-bought applesauce, I'm sure you could. However, as always, I recommend making homemade if possible. In this bowl, I'm starting off with 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I'm sure you could round up to a full stick if you want. Like I said, I have homemade applesauce. I am using 1 cup or 240 grams of my homemade applesauce. You can see it is a bit thicker than the store-bought applesauce. It's super flavorful. All I did is I made it in 2 batches. I took in each batch a little over a pound of golden delicious apples, and I just sliced around the core. I didn't peel them. I did not slice the apples into small pieces. I did cut the big pieces into smaller pieces, but by no means did I sit and slice the apples like I was making a pie. I put 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice on the apple slices. I covered the microwave safe bowl with plastic wrap, and I microwaved on high for a total of 15 minutes with 3 increments of 5 minutes. And after each 5 minutes, I peeled back the plastic and stirred. But be careful because the steam will be very hot. Once it was done, I took my immersion blender and blended everything together, peel and all. Like I said, this is really thick, it's really flavorful, it's really easy. I highly recommend that you just make your homemade applesauce in the microwave. It's those little extra steps, little bits of effort that take things from good to great. Also, I'm going to use some sugar. I have 1/3 of a cup of light brown sugar as I measure 80 grams, and 1/3 of a cup of white sugar as I measure 70 grams. I saw some recipes online in which people use a full cup of sugar, so I may add a bit more, we'll see. I'm going to do 2 eggs, 2 large eggs, and for the spices, I am going to add 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, and 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg, a pinch of salt, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. Even though I did put some lemon juice on the apples when I made the homemade applesauce in the microwave, and if you use store-bought, it will probably have citric acid, I still think 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or some other liquid, maybe even apple juice, would be good. The applesauce is done, so the first step is just melting the butter in the microwave. I melted my butter in the microwave. It took about a minute. I'm preheating my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit because this applesauce pie recipe is super easy. It's going to be ready for the oven in no time. All I have to do is mix together the ingredients for the filling. So my applesauce, homemade applesauce. Like I said, I tasted this and it tastes absolutely amazing. It would be good all on its own. The sugars. I'm adding everything except the eggs first because the melted butter is hot. The lemon juice, and I want to bring down the temperature before I add the eggs so that I don't accidentally cook the eggs. Spices and salt. So I am going to mix everything together and then I'm going to try it. I finished mixing together the filling for the applesauce pie. I tasted it, and even though a lot of people would think it's sweet enough, I think it does need a bit more. So I'm going to add a bit more sugar. There's my oven. I'm going to add enough to where I will have added half a cup each of white and brown. So a total of 105 grams of white sugar and a total of 120 grams of light brown sugar. This is the first time I'm making this recipe. I'm kind of inventing it as I go along. And as always, it's better to add less in the beginning because you can always add more later. You can't take away. I tasted the filling again, and it's definitely perfect now. The extra bit of sugar actually brought out the apple flavor even more. Now that I'm satisfied with how the filling tastes, I'm going to add my 2 eggs and mix together. And then all I have to do is pour the filling into the unbaked pie shell. Now that my filling is done, all I have to do is pour it into my unbaked 9-inch pie shell. This is going to go into a 350-degree oven, uncovered, for I'm guessing 45 minutes. I just took my applesauce pie out of the oven. It was in at 350, uncovered, for 45 minutes. At first glance, this pie's deep, rich brown color reminded me of pumpkin pie. But the beautiful aroma of sweet apples and spices made it clear that this was definitely something different. I had never tried nor made applesauce pie, so I was really curious how this was going to turn out. And when I took my first bite, I knew that this applesauce pie recipe was one of the best desserts that I had ever made. Honestly, the best adjectives for this applesauce pie would be incredible, fantastic, amazing, and wow. When I took the first bite, I realized that this applesauce pie reminded me of apple butter. The flavors were really intense and it was really sweet, and the spices came through very strong. Most people seem to like, if not love, apple butter, so if you like apple butter, you'll definitely love this pie. I was a bit concerned that the butter and eggs would compete with the flavors of the homemade applesauce and spices, but that wasn't true at all. I also really liked this pie's texture. It was soft and custardy like a pumpkin pie or a sweet potato pie, but there were still small bits of apple here and there, reminding my palate that this was an apple pie. Although I think that comparing this pie to apple butter would be the best way to describe the taste, if I were to compare it to a normal apple pie, I would say that although the apple flavor was definitely there, the flavor of the spices was a bit stronger than in a normal apple pie. I would also say that it was probably a bit sweeter. This applesauce pie turned out sweeter than I was expecting, I guess because the sugars in the apples became more concentrated as it baked. So even though I thought it was okay, it might be a bit too sweet for some people. You might want to cut back to 1/3 of a cup of each type of sugar, or maybe 1/3 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons. Not if, but when I make this applesauce pie recipe again, I'm not going to change a thing, but I wanted to let you know that the amount of sugar would be my only critique. Although the flavor was out of this world, the best thing of this applesauce pie recipe might be how easy it is. This is a no peel apple pie, so there's no peeling apples, no slicing them, and you don't have to roll out 2 crusts. You also don't have to worry about trying to place the top crust perfectly in the center of the pie. Although you probably could use store-bought applesauce, I highly recommend making your own homemade applesauce in the microwave like I did. It's just a few extra minutes, and it's one of those things that if you take a little bit of extra time and put forth a little more effort, it's going to taste a lot better. If you watch my channel, you know that I research a lot of recipes so that I can create my own, and sometimes my creations are really good and sometimes they're more mediocre. You also know that I'll be honest with you if I think something is mediocre or needs more work, but this applesauce pie recipe is not one of those. I know I'm repeating myself at this point, but this was absolutely fantastic. One of the best pies I have had this year, if not in the past multiple years. A lot of people like to eat apple pie with ice cream, but honestly, I think that would ruin this. This was so flavorful and so amazing, it didn't need anything. If you have never made one of my recipes, I highly recommend that you make this one. I wish I would have put it in my Thanksgiving pie series, but I didn't have time. So give this a try for Christmas, Easter, Sunday dinner, or just because. I know you'll fall in love with it just like I did. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.